Day 2 of TGS 2018, and though we wanted to shoot this video outside, it is absolutely miserable. So we are inside the hotel next to the convention center, and it's in the same place that we actually got a chance to play Devil May Cry 5, which is the new game in the series that Capcom's making internally. Tam, you've played this before, correct?
Yeah, so I played it at Gamescom, and it was specifically the Nero build that we played, and I got to get to grips with the basics of the game, which whenever you play these games first time, it kind of like you never feel good playing it, but it started to click into place. There are certain elements of it that were kind of confusing still, like the Devil Breaker it's taking some getting used to. It doesn't have the kind of freedom of weapon switching that we're used to from the Devil May Cry games.
Right.
So the system is, I mean, you can speak to it more.
Yeah. I mean, playing as Nero, I did expect a bit more fluidity, both from his melee attacks and his gunplay. He's a little bit slow because, the focus is on his Devil Breaker arms. And I think what frustrated me, unfortunately, was the fact that even though you pick up and can hold, I think, 4 Devil Breaker arms, at least at the mission we were playing, you can't cycle through them. So if you have 4 and you want to use, say, the second or third down the slot, you actually have to manually break and get rid of the breakers you do have. Now, there are plenty of them to pick up, but it did feel a little disadvantageous to not be able to, say, strategize and be as fluid as I would be when playing, say, as Dante. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like you said, like we're used to having these options unlocked to us and then figuring out how best to work them into our style of play, which isn't the case for Nero, but we played with Dante today, and that is very much the case with him. We played quite, I think it was like a build where he had been, his abilities had been unlocked, so his later stage abilities.
Yes.
So it's a more souped up Dante than perhaps we would usually have at that stage of the game, but he had the fluidity that I wanted from Devil May Cry 3. He's back with his styles, the kind of like trick style, sword master, gunslinger, I'm probably getting all these names wrong, and royal guard.
Right.
But yeah, and they're like mapped to the D-pad, and it's that kind of satisfying finger gymnastics that you need to do to make super slick combos. So I had a problem with my build where it required me to play again a few times. And by the time I was finally done and got like a 1 full playthrough, I was getting like S rank rankings for each of my combat encounters, and that felt really good. The kind of momentum you build up and moving around the environment, that kind of stuff that you get with Dante, it's exactly what you need, and it felt good.
And of course, you also have the ability to swap between different melee weapons or guns on the fly, and that includes also a motorcycle that Dante can rip in half and use as dual blades.
Yeah, and it's really distinct from the other weapons. The other weapons feel traditional, like the sword would feel and like the gauntlets would feel. This one is kind of like a really long, wind-up, multi-hit, kind of like it is very, very slow, but it like hits such a wide range of enemies across such a massive like field, and like traps them within this attack. So it's like a really good like way to kind of build up your combo gauge, but also take some pressure off to give you some time to think, which is what I was doing, using it to kind of like give me time to think of what style I need to switch to next.
Yeah.
And it was often like, oh, I need to go into kind of the trick style so I can teleport to the enemy, and then use that again to fill some time, and then go, oh, I need sword master, and then switch to that so I can do air combos and that kind of stuff. And it was like, it's a good kind of like texture to the combat system, which is already feeling quite good. That kind of trapping mechanism almost, it feels real good to have that.
Yeah, like it did feel really nice to swap between all those different things on the fly and have those options. As you said, I think this was mission 11, so very far along, and I felt maybe a little bit unsure of what options I did have. I came across one of the little upgrade statues where you can cash in your orbs and buy new abilities, and then I realized like, oh wait, they have unlocked all but one, and I forget how much it cost, but it was far more than I had. Unfortunately, I also noticed that there is an option to purchase orbs with real-world money from the Xbox Live Store, in this case, because we were playing on Xbox. I'm sure the same will be true on PSN. And you know, this the old adage goes that it's really up to the player if they really want to take advantage of that, but it felt a bit strange to see that in a game like Devil May Cry. I never anticipated to see microtransactions or, I mean, yeah, it's player versus the computer, but pay to win mechanics.
I think the implications that we were talking about after seeing that was like, it's quite an overwhelming game mechanically. The abilities that you get, they all kind of stack on top of each other. And to be really good at the game, you need to be good at kind of using all of them almost in quick succession and kind of figuring out on the fly which one to bring in and which one to drop out.
And you're not going to get that if you just buy all of them at once. You're going to feel kind of like I did, which was a little bit lost, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. So like it took me a bunch of playthroughs of the demo to figure out how all the styles are best to transition between. And like you said, if you're just buying those items and abilities from the outset, do you kind of like bypass the part of the game that kind of teaches you and has the time set out for you to have this? It's paced in a way that you'll only have this ability and you'll spend an hour figuring that out before another one becomes available feasibly. So it's a weird, interesting but like weird kind of design choice.
Unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected, and I'm interested in seeing how it kind of like unfolds and the implications it has on the overall experience.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't skew the experience, because I'm not going to take advantage of that if I don't have to.
Yeah.
And I do look forward to playing this game to see what it's really about, because it's fun to see the old style Devil May Cry attitude and sort of aesthetic come back. Of course, I really love what Ninja Theory did with the series as well.
Same.
I don't mind having those two styles of DMC live in parallel, but of course Nero is like a big question mark for me. His Devil Breaker system is promising. I like that one of them I could ride around like a hoverboard and attack enemies, which is super surprising, but again, I still have some reservations about the way that you go through the different Devil Breakers. So clearly there's a lot we still have to find out about Devil May Cry.
And there's a third character as well. Like Dante feels great and like he feels as you'd want him to feel from Devil May Cry 3, but there's a third character that is kind of like an X factor perhaps as well. So it's going to be cool to see what becomes of him. They keep saying that he's very different from the other characters in this game and in previous games in the series.
Well, obviously there's still a lot of time between now and the eventual release date in 2019. I definitely look forward to seeing more of the game. Tam, I'm sure I can speak for you and say the same.
So I played it a bunch and we have a gameplay video up of it in which I get an overall rank of S, which I'm pretty proud of for my first time with Dante. So check that out, and yeah, you can find us meanwhile on Twitter. I'm at TimorH.
PC Brown.
Come and talk to us about Devil May Cry and weird dudes with white hair, which is Dante, in case you're wondering.
And Geralt.
And Geralt.
And Geralt.